Okay, this is a simulated session for social work 601. This is the second BPSS intake assignment. Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay. Hi, Jewel. How are you?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for coming in today. This is our first session. I just want to cover some of the basics of how generally it goes in first therapy session. So first and foremost, want to talk about confidentiality. So everything we talk about in here generally will stay between us, right? So it's a safe space, and it will not leave this room. Okay. There are a few exceptions to that guideline. Generally, the first exception is if you express intent to harm or kill yourself, or express intent to harm or kill somebody else, or if you share any information about child abuse or neglect or elderly abuse or neglect. Okay. So those are kind of like the three topics that may cause for me to break confidentiality in this session, just to alert other people on the situation as may be. Obviously, that doesn't mean don't share, your thoughts or sentiments if those are occurring. But I do want to say up front, just by the nature of the profession, those are the three scenarios in which some of the things may leave this space. Other than that, speak freely. It's your space. It's just you and I, and nobody else will know anything about what we discuss in here. Does that sound good?
Yep, I understand.
Feel free if you have any questions. So generally in the first session, we do what's called an intake. Basically just getting to know you, and just a little bit about your story, your history. And so we'll kind of I'll probably ask you more questions, a little bit more structured than how it typically be going, down the line in our future sessions, just because it is our first session. We want to kind of have a more holistic view of, who is Jewel and kind of what brought you to where you are today. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, awesome. So why don't we just start off with what brought you in today?
It's been really hard the past 6 months, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
I've just been really struggling getting out of bed, taking care of myself, which is really embarrassing to talk about, but
Okay.
like taking care of my hygiene,
Mm-hmm.
connecting with other people. I'm so used to being the social butterfly and hanging out with friends and family all the time. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just, I don't know, I'm not me right now.
And how long have you been feeling this way?
I would say it's gotten worse within the past 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And have you ever experienced this before?
Mm, no, I don't think so.
I guess like more so in terms of like other periods in your life.
Maybe when I was younger, like a teenager, just kind of figuring out life, but
Okay.
no,
Okay. Um, are you on any medications currently?
no medications, no.
Okay. All right. So you're saying you've been having trouble getting out of bed, um, and a little bit lack of motivation. I'm hearing
Hmm.
um, in the last 6 months or so, and this is kind of the first time, at least in recent memory, that you ever really felt like this. Maybe since a teenager.
Yeah. Yeah, it's thrown me off. I've never been this exhausted, and I don't know why I'm this exhausted.
Okay.
Like can't get out of bed some days. My husband has to call me from work just to remind me, like, hey, get up, try and eat something.
Mhm, mhm. So you're feeling a lot of fatigue.
Yeah, yeah, daily.
Okay, so every day you feel very.
Mhm.
Um, are you feeling any other physical symptoms, like in your body? Is there anything else kind of your body is feeling?
Mm, some aches and pains
Okay,
at times.
okay.
Yeah.
Aches and pains. Um,
Like in my
yeah,
legs and my arms.
okay, so legs and arms, like in your joints or muscles?
Yeah, exactly. Like in my joints.
Okay, okay. So joint aches and pains, physical fatigue, um, and did you mention a little bit of like mental fatigue as well?
Yeah. Yeah, that's I try to shut off my mind sometimes just because it can be a lot.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you. I hear you. I'm sorry, I'm sorry you've been going through all these things. Um, and you mentioned you have a husband.
Mhm.
Okay, and how long have you guys been together?
For about 20 years.
20 years. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, so it sounds like um, you have kind of a long history with your husband.
Yeah.
How would you describe your relationship?
He's extremely supportive.
Mm,
I just feel so bad that, I'm who I am right now
mhm.
because I can't be a good wife,
Yeah.
but he's still here trying to help me. I just feel bad that he has to do that.
Okay. So he's really a really important support for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I probably wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for him.
Mm. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, he's the person that kind of helped me figure things out right now. Um, of course, like I know I'm not doing well, but if I try to like make any step towards like scheduling an appointment like this or making a doctor's appointment, my mind just starts racing
Okay.
and I get overwhelmed and it's like I can't think straight. So he's been kind of there making appointments, doing the things I basically can't do anymore.
Okay. Okay. Uh, so he is more than just kind of like an emotional support for you. He almost kind of from an organizational standpoint, he really kind of helps you out. It sounds like
Yeah,
kind of helps
exactly.
uh, manage, in different aspects.
Yeah, he's been managing the house a lot lately.
Okay, house. So you guys live together in a house.
Yep, yep. Yeah, we live in Pontiac.
Okay. Um, and do you guys live with anybody else, or is it just you two?
Right now it's just us. I do have two kids. They're both 18 and they recently went away to school.
Oh wow. So university.
Yeah, yeah. They're
Congrats.
not far though, so they come home when they need to.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Do you have a close relationship with your kids?
I feel like I did,
Mhm.
but lately I haven't really been talking to them.
Okay.
I'm just really ashamed with where I'm at and I don't feel like a good mother. I don't feel important anymore. So it's been hard to really connect with them like I used to.
Okay. Um, and is this since they've gone off to school?
No, this probably started a couple months before they left.
Okay. Okay. And we might would you mind reminding me when so they just went off to school this past year?
Hmm.
Okay, so it's relatively recent. Like this is the first time. And
Yeah.
then your husband also works during the day?
Hmm.
So, okay, so, kids are off at school, husband's working, and then, uh, you've been at home kind of alone for most of the day?
Hmm.
Okay, okay. Um, and you're saying, um, that since you're a little bit before your kids went off to school, and since they've been off to school, your relationship with them hasn't been quite exactly, uh, as close as it used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I really blame myself because like they started off doing school,
Mhm,
like just commuting.
mhm,
But when I started to get the way that I got, they ended up going away, like applying for housing and everything. So a part of me feels like they were trying to get away from me because of how terrible I am.
mhm. And when you say terrible, uh, what's running through your mind as you say?
I'm not a good mom. I
Mm,
can't
mhm.
do anything for them. I can't do anything right.
And that must be really hard to feel.
Yeah. Yeah, it bothers me a lot throughout the day.
Okay. Um, if you don't mind, um, could you expand a little bit more on what you mean by that? You can't do anything for them, or you're not a good mom.
And when I started to get worse,
Mhm.
um, it was hard for me to like engage with them.
Okay.
Um, my mood also changed too. Like I went from being happy to being sad, and sometimes I would just get really irritated, and I felt like I couldn't express myself anymore.
Okay.
S- Yeah, it's just been really hard. I don't know what's going on.
So you're mentioning a shift in mood, um, and what I'm hearing is it sounds like a sustained kind of like a sustained mood shift, not kind of like a daily like I'm happy and then I'm sad. It's like a general shift towards, you're feeling okay, and then you shifted towards feeling down for like a longer period of time.
Yeah, yeah, and it was weird. It started technically when I maybe a year ago, like I left my job, and after that, like I slowly just started to get worse and worse. And I would say 6 months ago is when things got really bad for me. Like that's when it got the worst. But I started to notice it more right after I left my job.
Mm, mhm. Um, so you left your job about a year ago.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, and uh, if you don't mind sharing, what was the reason you ended up leaving your job?
The job was so stressful.
Mhm.
I was constantly thinking, am I good enough? Am I doing a good enough job? I worked in marketing, so we're constantly having to outperform the next person or outperform the next organization and do better and better. And there were just so many times where I didn't feel like I was good enough to be on the team.
Mm,
And it's hard because like I know they appreciated me, but at the same time, I had to always fight for myself. I just had to fight for my voice, and
mm,
like being the only Black woman in
mm,
that department, it was just stressful.
mm,
Like I knew I was doing my job, but I didn't get any recognition for what I felt like I deserved. But at the same time, like I took on all these different projects because I wanted to show them like I can do this. Like I wanted to prove myself. And it got to the point where I couldn't do it anymore. I was constantly thinking about my boss and like what they were thinking of me, you know, am I good enough? There's just a lot. constantly
Mhm.
just thinking about how to be better.
Yeah. And what I'm hearing is your blackness is an important part of your identity.
Yeah, it was so hard being the only Black woman in the department. And I try to not let it show that
Mhm.
it bothered me. I really try to showcase who I am and what it means to be Black,
Yeah.
whether that be wearing my hair out natural or wearing a head wrap. Like, I didn't care what anyone thought, like I was going to be me, but you still see this, you see those smirks, you see people talking to themselves, you people come up, they want to make comments about your hair, and
Mhm.
that was another stressful point too. Just and wanting to be who I am and wanting to showcase who I am, but then knowing that I may end up seeing someone talk about me or overhearing someone talk about me or someone just bluntly coming up to me and saying something.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, being in this space, um, we definitely want to create a space where we allow for your identities to shine through, right? Not just be accepted, but to be celebrated and really embraced. Obviously, being a therapist of color as well, being a Black man, um, I've had to navigate this, not just in my career, but in different sessions and settings as well. So I'm glad you're able to open up, you know, um, kind of about this aspect of you because this is important, right? This is what I'm hearing from you is that this was important to you in terms of your time working at this company. Um, is there any kind of is there any other way or any other aspect of your blackness that you think is important or worth sharing or could come up in sessions to come?
I just want to be able to be who I am without worrying about how other people perceive it.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, and I think that's something that's really important, right? That's a for all of us, and I hear you on that. Um, I feel you, and um, I look forward to exploring that together. In session, if that's something that you'd be willing to share and explore, if that's of interest. And towards maybe the end of this session or next session, we're going to talk about kind of goals for what you want out of the treatment, and we'll come up together with a plan um, for those goals, and go from there. Um, So you're working a year. I mean, you haven't been working in a year, um, and you kind of been at home. You've kind of described having trouble getting out of bed, physical fatigue, um, and kind of somewhat of an inability to kind of manage your obligations, let's just say.
Yeah.
Um, and you're getting a lot of support from your husband in that aspect.
Hmm.
Kids are off to school now, a little bit more distant. Um, outside of outside of your husband, do you have any other supports in your network? Maybe friends, family,
Um,
groups.
I have friends, but I haven't really been talking to them.
Okay.
Um, there's my mom, and I talk to her every now and then, but
Mm.
I've been distant with her as well.
Okay.
My brothers, they don't live here. They live in like Colorado and Texas. So
Okay. So you haven't been really talking to your friends or extended family much.
no, not really.
Okay. Uh, what about hobbies or like pastimes, things you do for fun?
I love gardening. but I really haven't been able to do that. Um, Also really love reading,
Mhm.
but again, that's just like I've tried to buy books just to like get excited and they just sit there.
Mhm.
Um, Baking is also something that like I haven't been able to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, um, sounds like you do have a couple things you like to do, um, and even some kind of outdoor stuff, some good activities. Um, but you haven't been able to kind of get to them lately.
Yeah.
Um, and when would you say is like the last time you gardened or did something for yourself?
It's been so long. Maybe like right before things got worse, so 6 or 7 months ago.
Okay. Okay. Um, so you haven't really had it. You haven't really had an interest in doing those things.
No. Like I said, I try, like I may buy things, like I'll buy a new cake stand or something like that, but it just sits there.
Okay. Um, all right. Um, and you've kind of mentioned a couple times when things got worse around the 6 month mark from today, from now. Um, and you've been at home alone for most of the day throughout the days. Um, you haven't really gotten around to some of the things you enjoy, is what I'm hearing. And I know that can be really tough, right? To kind of not be able to do the things that you enjoy, right? That bring you happiness.
Right.
Um, I was wondering if you're open to sharing a little bit on a kind of a daily basis or a day to day. What does it look like for you? Like how do you feel? How do you feel? I know you kind of described fatigue, um, and your husband goes off to work. What does like any given day in the life of Jewel look like these days?
Well, I usually wake up around 11 o'clock.
Okay.
Um, I usually just kind of lay there, don't move around too much. I fall back asleep, and then my husband will call me around 12:30 just to wake me up. That's his lunch break. So
Mhm.
he'll wake me up and try to encourage me to get out.
Okay.
Takes me 30 minutes to an hour to finally get out of bed.
Mhm.
And I'll try to take care of like my hygiene
Okay.
then. But sometimes I just like change from pajamas to sweats and find something to snack on.
Okay.
And
So
that's my day. I wait for him to come home. He usually cooks or he'll order something.
okay. And while you're kind of going through this day, um, especially maybe waiting for him to get home, you kind of completed your routine. What are you feeling? Like if you could describe like any other kind of symptoms, if there are any thoughts, sensations, feelings that kind of go through your head, your heart, um, on a day to day.
I get really sad
Yes.
and I feel lonely.
Mm,
It's hard because it feels like no one understands. And I also feel ashamed.
mm,
Like I shouldn't be this way. I don't know why I feel this way.
mm,
I just know that I don't want to do anything.
okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean that can be really tough. I mean, it sounds like a year ago you were really working really hard, and putting a lot of effort into your job, right? Um, and obviously now that's not the case. Things have changed, um, and it's a little bit of an adjustment, right? It's a little bit of adjustment to go from exerting that much energy into something like a job and no longer doing that. So I hear you about uh, kind of the shame that comes with that, right? And not being not being adjusted to kind of this new kind of schedule. maybe emotionally, um, going through all that. Um, I was wondering if you have any kind of spiritual or religious connection that kind of helps you um, in times of need or just in general. Um, if you have any religious affiliation that's important to you.
I grew up a Christian, but right now it doesn't really feel like it's been helping me. It's like I try to pray every day,
Okay.
but it's more so just me just asking God why. Like, why am I this way?
Mm,
Why can I not do anything? And like, even when I try to do something, like I'll try to take care of myself. My heart starts racing, everything just gets overwhelming. I get hot.
mhm.
So I tend to just avoid doing anything at all.
Okay. So you pray sometimes,
Yeah.
um, but you grew up with a religious background.
Hmm.
Okay, so growing up, you had a religious background. Now it's not as structured. Maybe is that what I'm hearing
Yeah.
in terms of maybe do you take part in a church?
Not anymore.
Okay, so yeah, maybe not as structured, but you still kind of pray or at least believe in in some higher form.
Hmm.
Um, and um, would you say that it helps you to do so?
To pray.
Mhm. Or just maybe your spiritual or religious kind of beliefs?
Sometimes
Okay,
um, praying, not so much, but sometimes listening to certain songs will help me.
okay, okay. Um, yeah, I'm glad that you have that maybe as an outlet sometimes. Um, if you don't mind, I just want to transition a little bit into uh, if you have ever used kind of any external sources for support or pleasure. I know sometimes we get down. Sometimes people maybe like to have a drink or two. Um, have you ever kind of, or do you drink at all?
Not really anymore. Like when my friends would come over and we'd have like a family game night, I would, have a couple glasses of wine, but right now I haven't really been doing too much.
Okay, so you haven't really been drinking too much.
No, not
Have you
really.
ever smoked?
No.
Okay, so neither one of those are too important for you right now.
Mm-mm.
Okay. Um, I also wanted to ask, just as part of the assessment, we generally ask this every intake.
Hmm.
Feel free to answer honestly. Um, have you ever felt like you want to take your own life?
No, I don't feel like I want to take my own life,
Mhm.
but sometimes I am just like, why do I exist? Does
Okay.
that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so kind of questioning existence. Um,
Yeah.
okay, but you've never gotten to the point where you feel like I want to kill myself.
No, I've never been to that point.
Okay. All right. Thanks for sharing. Appreciate you being vulnerable. Um, that's never an easy topic. Um, so it really takes a lot of courage to be able to answer that honestly. So I appreciate that. And appreciate you, just overall, just being very open and honest. Um, it looks like um, our session's almost up. But I did kind of just want to go back through some of the things we talked about, make sure we're on the same page, and then kind of set us up for next time. Um,
Okay.
so, what I heard from you throughout the session is that in the last year or so, kind of you started feeling an emotional shift within yourself. You're working really hard, and at the job, a big part of what was going on at your job was that your identity as a Black woman was not viewed positively or was not being respected, or that you had to work even harder, right, because of your identity.
Yeah.
Um, you ended up leaving that job and you haven't worked since. And especially in the last kind of 6 months, you've really been feeling a lot more down, struggling to get out of bed, kind of struggling to form a routine and follow a routine. Um, you have this wonderful husband, who really takes care of you in a lot of ways, and has been your support, for a while. Um, you got your two kids; they're off at school, seemingly doing well, um, and maybe you're not as close with them as you used to be. Um, and also socially, you also haven't really been in touch with your friends as much, um, lately. So you're kind of here looking to figure out, kind of getting to the root of all this. Um, does that all sound about right so far?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay. I usually just like to summarize things kind of at the end of session, just to make sure you feel heard and understood. Um, is there anything else, um, that I didn't touch on today? I mean, I know we kind of have to do the intake, right? So it's a little bit more structured. But
Mhm.
I also am very client oriented. Like, if you have something you want to share, something on your mind, something you've been feeling that I didn't ask about today, like, please feel free to share at any point in any session. But also, like, right now, you definitely have some time to do so.
Yeah. Um, I guess the only thing is that I do want to be able to start working again,
Okay.
but there's a lot of fear. Like sometimes I can't even open my computer to even just look for jobs. Like I just get overwhelmed.
Okay.
Um, so I would like to be able to talk about that at least.
Okay. So you feel a lot of fear, to even get started.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Um, and when you're feeling this fear, kind of, how does that manifest for you?
My heart will race.
Okay.
Um, like a lot of shallow breathing, I guess you could say.
Hmm.
Um, my mind is like, what if I go through the same thing again? Like that's something that I'm always thinking about,
Hmm.
just because it's like I loved what I did at my last job, but the social environment just was not the best for me.
Hmm.
So I'm constantly thinking like, okay, like it's most likely just going to be the same thing all over again. Like there's not that many Black women in my field. So I'm just scared to put myself back out there.
Okay. And then when you feel these things, what happens next?
I won't look at anything. Like I won't apply for jobs. I won't look at jobs.
Mhm.
That's when I usually just I go back upstairs and I lay down.
I tell you, you kind of shut down.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for sharing that. And I think that is, really brave for you to share, um, and also useful, right, for me to know and for us to continue to talk about, in session, in terms of, creating some goals, right? So I think what I'm hearing as a potential goal could be, completing some job applications, right? Like a first step. Obviously, the end goal is to obtain the job and be able to work the job. I think, right, is what I'm hearing.
Mhm.
Um, but kind of a first baby goal or baby step could be just completing some applications. Um, so thanks for showing up and being vulnerable. Um, and we can continue the conversation in our next session. All right.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.